2:15 p.m. local time. Just a few hours after the ceasefire between the United States and Iran was put in place, Israel launched a missile strike on Beirut, hitting one of Hezbollah's main operational districts, a key political and command center for the group. The strike was not part of the US-Iran agreement, and the Israelis were not bound by it. But the timing shattered the fragile balance that had just been established. Within hours, Iran responded. Tehran announced the immediate reclosure of the Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping, and warned that the ceasefire with Washington was now hanging by a thread. The IRGC went further. They published a steganogram, an image-based map distributed through Iranian channels, showing a red zone drawn across the Strait of Hormuz. According to the IRGC, the red area marked the waters where mines had been laid during the course of the war. The zone cut directly across the corridor that oil tankers had been preparing to use on their way out of the Persian Gulf. The message was simple. Any tanker that tried to pass through that stretch of water risked hitting a mine. But Iran did not close the door entirely. Instead, the IRGC offered an alternative. Tankers could transit through Iranian territorial waters near Larak Island, under IRGC Navy escort, in exchange for a transit fee paid directly to Tehran. The route past Larak, the IRGC said, was clean. It was a direct attempt to seize full control of the strait and turn the waterway into a paid corridor for oil exports. Every country that wanted its tankers to move safely would have to negotiate directly with Iran and pay for the privilege. At the same time, intelligence coming in from the USS Abraham Lincoln, still operating in the Arabian Sea and running continuous reconnaissance on fishing traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, flagged a significant shift. In the last several hours, the number of Iranian fishing vessels operating in the strait had increased several times over. Surveillance drones and ship-based radars were tracking dozens of small boats leaving Iranian ports and moving into the shipping lanes. The data was being fed back to the Fleet Command Center in real time. The problem was clear. Some of those fishing boats were almost certainly exactly what they looked like, civilian fishermen going about their work. But some of them were not. The IRGC had been using the same cover for weeks, loading mines onto old fishing boats and dropping them into the strait under the disguise of normal maritime activity. With the ceasefire hanging on a thread, a mined Strait of Hormuz gave the Iranian regime enormous leverage. Every additional mine meant an additional charge Iran could demand for safe transit through its coastal waters. Every tanker forced to take the alternative route past Larak Island was another stream of revenue flowing into Tehran. A closed strait was not just a military tool. It was a negotiating weapon and a cash machine. And the counter-problem was just as clear. The US Navy could not simply ban Iranian fishing boats from operating in the Gulf of Oman or the Persian Gulf. Fishing is a legitimate civilian activity in Iranian territorial waters, and blocking it would itself be an act of war that would collapse what remained of the ceasefire. With the number of fishing vessels in the strait climbing fast, tracking every single one of them in real time was practically impossible. Some would slip through the surveillance net. Some would be carrying mines. Nobody could say with certainty which ones. While all of this was unfolding in the strait, the US military was still executing its reinforcement plan, a plan that had not been paused or scaled back despite the ceasefire. The USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group was heading west across the Pacific. The Boxer, a WASP-class amphibious assault ship, had departed San Diego in mid-March and was currently in the waters around Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, along with its escort ships USS Portland and USS Comstock. On board were approximately 2,500 Marines from the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit, plus F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters, MV-22B Ospreys, and AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters. At the same time, the USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group, which departed Naval Station Norfolk on March 31st with over 5,000 sailors and 3 destroyers, was still crossing the Atlantic, making its way toward the Middle East for an expected arrival in approximately 3 weeks. Once both groups arrive in the theater and join the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group and the USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group already in position, the total U.S. naval personnel concentrated around Iran will exceed 20,000 sailors and Marines. That is on top of the 40,000 to 50,000 American troops already stationed at bases across the Middle East. In total, the American force assembling around the Iranian theater is climbing well past 70,000 personnel. The ceasefire had not stopped any of it. What this all means is that the White House is not ruling out the possibility that the active phase of the war could resume, and that a ground operation could follow if Iran continues to block the strait. To fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz, every mine that the IRGC laid during the war would have to be located and destroyed. Without that, no tanker captain in his right mind would take a fully loaded crude carrier into those waters, and Iran knows it. For the Iranian regime, the current situation is almost ideal. A mined strait combined with a safe corridor through Iranian territorial waters past Larak Island gives Tehran everything it wants: full leverage over global oil traffic, a direct revenue stream from escort fees, and political control over every government that needs its tankers to get through. The probability that Iranian leadership agrees to cooperate in clearing its own mines is extremely low. Doing so would mean surrendering the single most powerful bargaining chip Iran has. President Trump has kept up steady pressure. Despite signing the ceasefire, he continues to repeat publicly that the terms must be met, that the Strait of Hormuz has to be fully open, that oil tankers must transit safely, and that no commercial shipping will be controlled by IRGC escort or forced to pay Iranian transit fees. On April 8th, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane said it plainly in a press briefing. The ceasefire, Kane said, is a pause, nothing more. American forces are ready to resume combat operations if Iran does not move toward a negotiated settlement. Everything on the ground supports that warning. The U.S. continues pulling additional forces into Iranian waters. The carrier strike groups are in position or nearly there. The amphibious ready groups are loaded with Marines and combat aircraft. The force assembling around Iran is still growing by the day, not shrinking. On the other side, the IRGC is doing the opposite of standing down. They are reinforcing their control over the strait, publishing their red zone maps, increasing their fishing boat traffic, and refusing to pull back from the ultimatums they have set. The situation does not look like it is heading toward a peaceful resolution. It looks like both sides are digging in harder, and the pressure is building on both ends at the same time. Everything is accelerating, not winding down. We will continue to follow these events as they develop. Subscribe to the Madsen Brief channel to stay updated on the latest news. See you soon.